It's the weekly show with David J. Maloney. This week, David talks to author and Alabama State Auditor Jim Ziegler. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome to everyone at home, and I would normally say our studio audience to the weekly show. I am your host, David J. Maloney. I say normally because we would usually shoot the show before a small studio audience at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, but we are still shooting from home due to coronavirus concerns. And because we are still shooting from home, filling in for our house band, the Mogiles, again with me tonight is my son, Gianni. So a new research study has revealed that bad smells improve memory. Yeah, this is why you never forget a trip to New Jersey. And according to a new study, online dating is responsible for 17% of marriages. Incidentally, it's also responsible for 40% of divorces. Let's see, scientists at the University of Pennsylvania have discovered the difference between male and female brains. As it turns out, women's brains are in their heads. Oh, and did you hear this? Recent reports show that the average sex act lasts only 5.4 minutes, which raises a very important question. Why do I always have to pay for a full hour? Oh, and you can now buy an audiobook version of the Bible read by Charlton Heston on Amazon. I can't wait to hear him say, "Get your filthy hands off me, you damn dirty temple guards of the Sanhedrin." And lastly, Capitol building police continue to face criticism for how easily intruders were able to invade the House chambers. They should have put my wife at the front door. I've been with her for over 20 years, and I still can't get anything past her. On this week's show, we welcome author and Alabama State Auditor Jim Ziegler. Jim was the man behind the Block the Toll movement, which spread to multiple states across the nation and halted the state of Alabama's plan to install a toll road on I-10. With new year, new infrastructures, issues across the country, Jim's here to chat about it all and to keep us all up to date. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back. G? And we are back. Our featured guest this week is the current Alabama State Auditor and the leader of the Block the Toll movement in Alabama, Jim Ziegler. Jim helped start one of the most remarkable civic activism movements in recent memory here along the coast. And the movement has actually spread to multiple states as infrastructure issues are raised across the country. And there's even more coming on the horizon. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Jim Ziegler. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so very much, David, and we appreciate your taking interest in what we the people are concerned about.
Well, I know for a fact that our Alabama audience will know you, but for those in our neighboring states watching, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm the elected state auditor for the entire state of Alabama, all 67 counties. And now let's see, we're talking to people also in Mississippi and...
Well, our audience
Florida.
pretty much goes pretty much from Destin, Florida, all the way to Louisiana state line.
Okay. In Mississippi, they have a new state auditor, and he has been very, very active. He uncovered the largest government fraud in Mississippi state history, and there have just been a number of investigations and arrests in that. And in Mississippi, their state auditor has something that ours does not have in Alabama, and that is powers to investigate financial misdoings in government at all levels. And so what I've had to do is use the very little powers that I've had and be a citizen activist who happens to be sitting in the state auditor's office. My mission when I was elected in 2014 was to turn the state auditor's office into something that it had never been, and that is a watchman against government waste, inefficiency, mismanagement, and corruption. And gracious knows we needed that, and we've been able to do a lot along that line.
So is that what got you into politics, wanting to make sure that there wasn't mismanagement or misdeeds?
Well, yes, it was. As a private citizen for the previous 30 years before I was elected, I was involved in a half dozen or so cases where we citizens would challenge government spending. We filed a taxpayer lawsuit against politicians getting into the state employees' retirement system, and we won that case. The state retirement system is not designed for part-time city councilmen and part-time mayors. It is for state workers. It's their career, and they need a strong retirement system, and we have one. And we will fight to keep a strong retirement system. We don't want the politicians getting their hands on the retirement money.
Let's chat first a second about this truly monumental movement you helped start here, the Block the I-10 toll. I can only think did you imagine yourself starting a movement like this? Or was there a specific straw that broke the camel's back that's made you say, I've got to do something, I can't sit back on this?
Well, it was the latter. When ALDOT and the Ivey administration first proposed putting a new bridge across I-10 on Mobile Bay, that sounded like, well, that's a good idea. There is some congestion, mostly during the afternoon and morning rush hours and on the weekends that are beach weekends. And so I was listening, everybody was listening. We wanted some fixed for the congestion. But when they came out with the toll plan, it was a bad plan, and the more we found out about it, the worse it got. For instance, they said, well, it's going to be a $6 toll. We got to looking at it, that's one way. If you want to go home, that's another $6. And then we found out that's per car. If the family's got 2 cars, 3 cars, everybody is going to be paying the toll. And then we found out they were going to give a 55-year lease on this interstate highway to some outside investor who would not be much accountable to anybody. And it just reeked of a 55-year mistake. And then we found out that there was a non-compete clause, so that the state was agreeing not to do any enhancement and improvement on the old causeway, the old Bankhead Tunnel, or the Africatown Bridge, so that people would have to use that toll bridge more and more. And that's just unconscionable. So as we released this new information, the group quickly grew. We started out with 1 member, me. And within 3.5 months, we had 55,000 members. Now, they weren't just names on a list. They were active, emailing, posting on Facebook, going to meetings, writing letters, sending emails. Most of these citizens had never been activists before. Well, they are now. And believe it or not, 52,000 of them have stayed with us for other issues of government accountability. That's amazing that when our main issue was over.
So singular. It was such a singular issue, but the thing is it's indicative of a bigger problem, right?
It is a much bigger problem. Montgomery, our state capital in Alabama, is owned and operated and controlled by the Montgomery insiders. I'm not one of them. I'm one of the outsiders. And there are many, many more of us tax-paying public than there are of the Montgomery wheeler dealers. But they know what's going on, and they're up there right now putting things together to benefit themselves.
Well, I want to come back. We got to go to a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, I want to talk about your book, Blocking the I-10 Toll Scheme. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back with author and state auditor Jim Ziegler. And we are back with author and Alabama State Auditor Jim Ziegler. Jim, I want to talk about your book, Blocking the I-10 Toll Scheme, A Successful Citizen Movement. What made you decide to write the book?
When we got essentially through and we had blocked the Montgomery program, the ALDOT program for the toll bridge in 2019, it occurred to me that other citizens who had an issue with their city government, their county government, or the state government, or the federal government, could learn a lot of lessons about what we did right and what we did wrong in our 3.5 month campaign that was a success. This was a project, when we first started, people in Montgomery would tell me, "You're wasting your time. This is a done deal. There's nothing you can do. They're going to ram it through." And fortunately, I did not listen to that, and neither did our 50,000 plus citizen activists listen to that. And I thought it would be a good example of how the good guys can win and how to do it.
Now, we've talked about it. I mean, there's been talk about a new bridge on I-10 for a long time. But what were the first rumblings within the Capitol regarding a new bridge that made you first realize, oh, this isn't going to be good?
That's an interesting question, because right at first in 2018 and early 19, I thought, well, we need to fix the Bayway. And we might need a new basic bridge over the Mobile River. Not the whole Bayway, it works, but just to go around those tunnels or go over those tunnels, as the case may be. And so I was feeling good about it. But ALDOT came down and held some public hearings, and they began to give more details on it. And the more we learned, the more concerned that I got.
So what exactly was the plan that the Alabama Department of Transportation eventually came out with, and why do you think so many people had such a visceral negative reaction to what that plan was?
The idea that outside investors, called a P3 partnership, which stands for public-private partnership, would essentially be given a lease on this major portion of an interstate highway. I-10 is the fourth longest interstate highway in the United States, and it goes 4,000 miles from Jacksonville, Florida to Santa Monica, California. This would have affected millions of people a year. And the very idea that you're going to give some outside billionaires a lease on I-10, wow, that people just said, I don't care if the toll is $1, I'm against it.
Mm-hmm. How did the need for a bridge morph into the need for a toll bridge?
That bridge could have been built, it could have already been built with Gold Mesa, which is the Gulf of Mexico energy money, with the BP settlement money, with federal grants, with the new gas tax that the legislature in their wisdom put on the state of Alabama in 2019, 10 cents a gallon additional. You could have taken a portion of that and bonded it and built this bridge already. But they got infatuated with the idea of bringing in these billionaire toll partners, and you could get all this money and never have to vote for a tax increase. So it was just somebody's good idea of the year, and it was a very bad idea.
Is there a reason that the Wallace Tunnel or the Bankhead Tunnel may need to eventually be demolished and replaced? I mean, I know there's been talk about, because I guess concern about getting bigger ships in the channel, maybe? I don't know.
there has been talk about that, and we do not know the answer to that. I have asked that several times, and right this minute, there are no plans to scrape the bottom of the Mobile River and do away with the Bankhead Tunnel. That's the old tunnel, or the new Wallace I-10 tunnel. There's no plans to do that right now. But as they age, and Bankhead Tunnel's now got, it's older than I am. It's pretty old. Eventually, they will get to the point where the maintenance cost will be excessive. So that's why I'm thinking that somebody is coming with a new I-10 Bayway plan, and we're told that that's coming sooner rather than later.
And I want to talk about that in a little bit, but first I want to talk a little bit more about these PP3s that you talked about, the public-private partnerships. Why do you think state and federal governments have tried to transition to this PP3 program and tolls to fund our infrastructure needs? I mean, is it that we just can't afford these things anymore, or is it because of the whole insider aspect of it? Or, I mean, it seems like there are other ways to pay for these things sometimes, no?
I give a real good analysis of that in my book. And basically, it's that this is a rediscovered, the toll tax, as our members called it. That's a good term, toll tax, is a rediscovered, newly engineered way to get extra money, and I'm talking about billions that can be controlled, so that the government all of a sudden is substantially larger, because in addition to tax revenue, which has been the main government source, you've also got toll tax revenue of billions.
You know, I guess one of the bigger aspects of this, not just that you were able to accomplish, blocking it, at least the first time, I guess one of the silver linings in all this is that this was a literal civics lesson for many of us normal citizens who've never been this involved or vocal in a political process. Was there something about this that has given you some encouragement, something about the way people responded and got on board?
Yes, there was. If there's an issue that people can see it's going to hit them in the pocketbook, or their substantial rights being taken away, you can get them involved. And then you have to figure out, how can the thing actually be blocked? Now, just putting up posts on Facebook or writing letters to the editor or calling your mayor, that raises awareness. But who's going to block the thing if it gets blocked?
Who's going to act?
That's right. And it's called an end game. And we finally got an end game when we found out that the Eastern Shore Metropolitan Planning Organization, the ESMPO in Baldwin County, and the MPO, the Mobile Planning Organization, would have to vote on this thing. And we got the list of them, and we divided our people up so that only those in that particular member's district were emailing them and calling them and going to see them. This idea that everybody calls everybody, you're calling officials that you don't vote for.
Well, you don't have standing. Now, and from what I understand, this wasn't just a Republican or Democrat thing. There were people on both sides. This was purely bipartisan. I mean, the people who got involved, there were people on both sides who got involved on this, correct? So are there lessons on bipartisanship that we can glean from this as well?
I think so. If an issue affects everybody, say it hits everybody in the pocketbook, it doesn't matter if they vote Democrat, Republican, if they consider themselves an independent, and we had all of the above in a group. And the very few times that somebody would post up something, it's a funny thing. So probably the majority of our members were Republicans, but every once in a while, one of them would post up that, we're blaming the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi for this. Well, they had nothing to do. This was Kay Ivey, the Republican governor in Alabama. And so we quickly corrected that. We're bipartisan in our criticism.
Now, it's a new year, and I believe there are some deadlines if Alabama's going to take advantage of some of those federal grants. Is that right?
That's right. Now, it's a year from September, which will be September of 22. We will lose a $125,000 grant if substantial progress hasn't been made on an I-10 bridge over Mobile Bay. And it can be done.
Now, so you were alluding to it earlier. There appears to be another plan being submitted for the I-10 bridge coming up, correct?
That's right. We've gotten a number of reports from Baldwin County mostly, and from Mobile County and from Montgomery that they're coming forward sooner rather than later with a new plans.
So it could be as bad as the one before, or it could be substantially improved. It could be something that's everybody wants, right? We don't know what it's going to be.
So when we get the plan, we've already been putting together some of our leaders who will divide it up and read it and do something that congressmen sometimes don't do, read the measure and analyze it.
Now, is there concern that they may try to drop this out at the last second so that there isn't enough time for you all to do that?
Surely not. Surely not. The leaders in Montgomery that we've had.
I'm already sensing sarcasm, Jim. How can our viewers get your book, Blocking the I-10 Toll Scheme, A Successful Citizen Movement? How can our viewers get your book?
Go on Block the Tolls, Support Accountability. On the right-hand side of the Facebook page, you'll see the link for the free copy of the book. Well, now, if somebody wants a printed copy, the printer wants to be paid. Naturally, he's in business. And they can go to the publisher, lulu.com. That's LULU.com. And somebody made a joke and said, yes, a Lulu of a book you've written. And that's one of the nicer things that's been called in Montgomery.
Well, I certainly appreciate you being on the show, Jim. Ladies and gentlemen, Alabama State Auditor and author and leader of the Block the Toll movement in Alabama, Jim Ziegler. Thanks for being on, Jim.
Thank you, David J.
That is our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Special thanks to Jim Ziegler for joining us. Taking us home ttonight, still sitting in for our house band, the Mogiles, my son, Gianni.